Alright everyone, so the last time I made a video on this heater I had said that the coils both work fine but the fan doesn't. Well, after doing some work on it between last night and a few days beforehand, now it works great. So I finally have a fully working heater. I did want to show you exactly what I was doing for this motor, but since I wasn't sure exactly what extra steps I would need, what exactly would have to be done, I decided not to record it, and I figured I would just show you the finished product all done and successfully running. So, as you can see, I took off the back panel here. There's the back panel right there. There's the screws. And here's the little fan motor. It's a pretty commonly made motor as far as I can tell, but I don't know how many have, you know, a screw here, a screw on the back, and one there. So I don't know if it's a proprietary thing. Not sure, but anyway, you can see it's a two-bladed fan, made of metal too, as you can see. Pretty awesome. And yeah, this is spinning so much better than it did when I first got this heater. So what I first did was, when I took off the back panel for the first time, there was a lot of dust caked up in here, caked up on the wire terminals, the wires themselves, on the motor, the bearings, and I was like, alright, so I brought the vacuum hose down, connected it to the port on the canister over there, and just vacuumed out all the inside of the heater, made it very nice and clean. Then after that, the first thing I did was I wanted to keep things kind of on the simple side first. I put oil in the bearing here and tried to get oil in the bearing out there. What I did was I detached the motor from the bottom of the heater. Let me just turn this over for a second. You can see those three nuts right there that hold the motor in place. And I took it out, brought it out here, and just gave it a good oiling, and the fan felt a little bit better, but I figured it wasn't going to be enough. I turned on the switch, same thing, just hummed and stood there. So I was like, I was kind of bummed. I was like, all right, you know what? I did a lot already. Let's just take a break, and we'll come back to it in a few days after I take that break and then get back to it. So then just last night, it was a very rainy night, so I figured, you know, it's a Friday night and I don't really do much of anything. I'm off from work today, so it's like, hey, let's work some more on the heater. So I took the motor out again from the heater, and this time I took off both the bearings on the front and the back. I did want to try to take the blade off as well, but that screw just would not budge at all. The screwdriver slipped twice, and I was like, all right, I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to strip that screw out. So I did what I could with the blade still attached. And what I found was I put this bearing on my hand, okay? Well, it was outside of the motor. I put it on my hand and put the fan through that bearing. And when I spun the blade on that bearing, it spun beautifully, like as smooth as possible. So I was like, okay, that bearing is fine. I'm going to put it to the side and leave it alone. This bearing was the one that was much rougher. Like, I tried to spin it on that one, slow down much faster. So I'm like, okay, this is the part that we really got to look at. So basically what I did was I cleaned off the shafts here and in the front where I could. And let's see, once I put everything back together, I put a lot of oil inside that space right there. And that thing took a lot of oil. Nothing leaked out or anything. And then before I put the bearings back on, I oiled it up a good amount, kept spinning the blade by hand, putting in more oil, spun, whatever. You get the idea. So I was like, okay, this is spinning down much better now. So now I went ahead and reassembled everything correctly on the motor, put it all back together, and then I kept the bearings loose, because if you make them too tight, it can bind the fan up. I kept them loose, and then I put the motor on here, turned the switch on, fan spun right up, no problems. I was like, awesome, so everything is okay. Just needed a good amount of cleaning, some disassembly and lubrication. And that's what I did. But now, of course, came the fun part. I did leave the bearings loose, as you say, but not too loose so they would rattle, just loose enough so that the fan could spin freely. Well, when I started putting the fan back into the heater, these nuts share the same, or at least these, which one? Yeah, these two nuts, okay, they share the same screw that the bearing is attached to. So I had a feeling, I was like, watch, I'm going to tighten this down, and it's going to start to bind. And then sure enough, it did. So I'm trying all these fine adjustments, this and that, and I'm thinking, all right, there's got to be some alternative here. Well, on this fan motor, there's a metal sleeve, as you can see here, that goes between this nut, or in this case, this black nut for that one, between the heater casing and the bearing, whatever, right? And this is actually what was pushing on it. I was thinking about it, so I was like, you know what? When I push the fan, oh sorry, here we go. When I push the fan on this side of the bearing, that's when it slows down. So I figured, all right, you know what I'm going to try to do here? These are holding it in place very securely. I'm going to take the metal sleeve off of that side and just screw it onto the nut by itself and adjust it accordingly. I did that, and it came out perfect. So I can show you the metal sleeve right here in the little container. So that one screw on that opposite end doesn't have this on here, but it's okay, because if you look, like this thing, it doesn't wobble whatsoever. It's very secured in place. So I had to take this out in order to get that bearing to fit. And that's what happens sometimes, even on something as vintage as this. Like these on these kinds of motors, they're very sensitive to the bearing being set correctly, because if they're not, then the fan could obviously bind up like you saw, and then it's like, what else did I do? All these fine tunings, and then I just decided to take this out and just keep these two in, put it to the heater casing, and it works beautifully. Like they say, if what you think works very well and it works great, just leave it alone, don't adjust it any further. And based on the sound that the fan was making, listening to the pitch, it sounds very close to the heater that Jay has, and also other Markel heaters I've seen before, like in elementary school. Yes, I can remember it from back when. And other heaters I've seen since then. So now that I have it all reassembled and in good shape, let's go ahead and turn this on, and you can see it in operation. Let's go ahead and get this plugged in now. I know you really shouldn't use a space heater with extension cord under normal circumstances, but I'm just doing it for testing purposes. And I mean, this is on a basement slab, so it's not combustible or anything. It doesn't even get warm when you just use one of the heat settings. So let's go ahead and plug it in. All right. And then we will go ahead and turn on the radiant heat switch. Spins right up. It's actually very quiet too. And yep, already feeling heat coming from the top. So that's good. Actually, well, while that coil starts to glow, here's the oil I used right here. I actually borrowed this from my brother. I'm going to give it back to him tonight. Zoom spout, and let's see. That's going out of focus. There we go. It's a non-detergent oil, and used by professional mechanics all over the world. All that good stuff. Oils whatever needs oiling, and paraffin base, non-gumming. Sorry, let me see if I can get it to keep focus. Sorry about that. It says there, a must for heater blowers. So I'm guessing I'm using it for the right thing, huh? Yeah, this is a pretty good oil, this Zoom Sped oil. I really like it a lot, so I'm glad he let me borrow this. It really came in handy. Yep, fan is still going. Oh yeah, plenty of air movement. In fact, I think it sounds a little bit quieter than it did last night, so maybe the oil set in or whatever. In fact, if I lift it off the table... Yeah, you hear that? That sounds really good. Yep, and there's the coil starting to glow right now, as you can see. So yeah, I'm just really glad that this is fully working now. And like I said, I'm probably going to use the radiant heat a lot more than the fan force, but it's nice to have your product fully work. You know what I'm saying? It's just a good peace of mind knowing that your product fully works. And yeah, I'm just really glad the motor wasn't bad. It just needed a good oiling and a good cleaning, and that fixed it right up. I'm really happy about that. So what I'll do now is I'll put the back panel I'll put the back panel back on, put it on the floor, and then we'll see how it sounds from there. It's actually very quiet. It's really nice. And here it is on the floor. Let's go ahead and turn it on again. Again, I don't know if you're hearing anything, but it's definitely a quiet heater. Yep, I can hear the coil warming up, so that's good. Yep, and there's air coming out as well. I gotta admit, the airflow is actually a little bit better when the back panel's not on, but I mean, really, it's not all that bad considering. And I mean, when the coil fully glows, the amount of heat coming out of here is really hot, so it's really nice. And you can see the coil starting to glow right now. And it's actually, the heater doesn't vibrate too much, actually, which is really good. I mean, I don't think it's perfectly balanced, but all things considered, and you even heard on the table, it really wasn't even making that much noise. So really, all things considered, the fan's as good as it's going to get. Like, it's at the right speed. I can tell by the sound of the, or the pitch of the airflow, and just by how well it's spun down, spun up. It's like, once again, when you know it's set correctly, just leave it alone. Don't touch it any further. And let me come back when this is fully glowing. And there you have it, guys, all fully warmed up. Coil's glowing. In fact, I could feel the heat all the way back here, so it's definitely doing a good job with the fan-forced heat. And yeah, so now it's all set to go. So, like I said, more often than not, I'll probably use the radiant heat, but again, just having it fully work is a good feeling, and I'm really happy with that. So now my vintage Markel heater is in full operation, and it's fantastic. And I mean, with all the dust removal, the cleaning, and the oiling I did on that fan motor, all things considered, excuse me, it should go for a long time. And if it does, that'd be fantastic. So I've wanted a heater like this for a long time, and now I got it, and it's fully working. Absolutely fantastic. So there you guys go. Everything's in operation, and it's doing great. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.